Okay, so couple of moments of theory. I don't put a whole lot of theory up front in this class. It's all based on anthro theory. So when you do go on to take anthro in college, you can be like, oh, that's that stuff we talked about. Uh, but for this, I want to kind of give you the theoretical backdrop. I'm going to try to translate it so it's not quite so confusing. A couple of names to write down, however. So the first name is so the first name is this person, Antonio Gramsci. He wrote what's called the Prison Notebooks. He was, and this is really important, anti-fascist protester and organizer in Italy. So the background to this, I'll make it really fast. This person, Antonio Gramsci, was an anti-fascist organizer. He was very prominent. He worked with a group of other anti-fascist protesters. They were arrested, put in jail. Arrested and put in jail with his compatriots. They were in single cells, but could talk to one another, which is going to become important in a couple of minutes. So they're all in jail. They are offered a deal because they were pretty successful. They held a lot of political capital. And this is protesting Mussolini and other fascist leaders at the time. So all these people are put in jail and they're offered a deal to get a reduced prison sentence if they renounce their anti-fascist beliefs and ideology. At first, everyone, and they're talking to one another. They're not in the same cells, like I said, but they're able to talk to one another. At first, everyone's like, "Hell no! I am anti-fascist. I'm committed to the cause. No way would I ever renounce my beliefs." Over time, it's a relatively short amount of time, things start to shift. So what Gramsci starts to notice is that as they keep getting more offers from the warden, basically, to have reduced sentence and be able to talk to their family, whatnot, if they renounce their beliefs, he starts to notice his buddies who had been very committed to the cause. They start to have some chatter of, well, you know what if we just say that we've renounced our beliefs, but we don't really renounce our beliefs? And then we can get out of jail and go back to being, good anti-fascist organizers. Gramsci starts to notice this and he starts writing observations on little slips of scrap paper. Some of the paper is literally just like shreds. Some of it's on like cigarette rolling paper, some of it's on toilet paper. So he starts writing down all these observations on these little pieces of paper. And there's a guard who is somewhat sympathetic to his cause. So Gramsci gives him these little slips of paper that the guard actually sneaks out to Gramsci's wife, who collected them and then like taped them down in a notebook, which is why this is called the prison notebooks. Long story short, he starts to notice that his buddies are switching from their very staunch anti-fascist beliefs to saying, well, maybe we should say that we're pro-fascist now that we've seen the error of our ways, and we'll work from within the paradigm of pro-fascist, but we'll be anti-fascist. And Gramsci this whole time was like, you can't do that. How do you renounce your beliefs? But he starts to notice this practice. So this is how quickly turn from one belief and perspective to even its fundamental opposite. He's like, how does this happen? So He starts tracking how you have the oscillation of beliefs and perspectives. Some of his buddies get let out of jail for just kind of they take the deal basically, but they get out of jail because they say, oh, we're going to be pro-fascist, but we'll still be anti-fascist. They get out and they actually started to lead pro-fascist rallies. So Gramsci is the first person to really talk about what's called hegemony. So this is your key word for the day. Once you start studying hegemony, you're going to see it everywhere. It's very, very foundational to understanding reality itself. So hegemony is how we come to love, accept, normalize, rationalize, and reproduce that. So that is me boiling down a very, very complicated aspect of social theory into a somewhat cheesy sentence, but definitely like screenshot that, write it down somewhere that you can keep hold of it. There's other versions of this word, so you'll hear about hegemonic order. Basically, it's anything that a person does or a group that may not be in their best interest, but they think it is because they have come to accept that totalizing perspective. And this is what we were talking about with Jonestown. So Gramsci was the first person to really, really notice that people will take on beliefs that are the opposite of their quote unquote natural beliefs, or are in fact harmful to their own well-being. And then they'll expect other people to follow suit. So I know some of you already are like, oh my God, this is kind of like what's going on in politics in the world right now. Exactly, right? So you've got all of this, and I'm going to do a quick screenshot for those folks who aren't here today. All of this is just this one person, Antonio Gramsci. So I'm going to stop share. Any questions so far in the chat, and then I'm going to move forward. Okay. Whiteboard. All right. Select all. Okay, next thing, and I promise I'm not going to yammer too much. You get a person named Jeremy Bentham. I don't know if any of you ever watched this TV show called Lost. It's pretty good, actually. A lot of the characters' names in Lost are philosophers. So if you're like, Bentham, I know that, that's why. So he is a utilitarian philosopher. He wants to understand, how does hegemony work in practice? He comes up with this idea, and definitely write this down if you're anthro-minded. And theme. Okay, so he comes up with what's supposed to be a thought experiment. This is never supposed to happen. How to get prisoners to control themselves and be control subjects. You'll see this is going to get really dark really fast. So he has this idea called the Panopticon. You're going to start hearing about the Panopticon a ton more in your everyday life, because this is such a powerful way of thinking about the world. So the Panopticon, if you look at the root, pan is all, opticon seeing. He wanted to understand, based on his reading of Antonio Gramsci, how do you get people to do something that is not in their best interest without violent coercion? How do you get people to say, I want to do this thing, which is in fact not good for them, and in fact may be harmful, but they think that they're choosing it for themselves, right? So go ahead and have that down, then I'm going to do a quick drawing. So this is where, don't worry about me. I'm not currently having a stroke. It's just going to look like I'm having a stroke because of how I draw this. What I would like you to picture is a control tower like out at the Portland airport, where you've got a tower that is basically like up above, and then I don't know if you can see where my hand is. So you've got a control tower that kind of stands up and can see 360 degrees around it. So have that in your mind, and then if you can, try to draw this on your notes. So if you draw, it's gonna look like, I can't even draw a straight line. Picture like a stop sign. Oh my God. It's supposed to be more angular, but this looks like a really messed up potato. Okay, well, that is horrific. And then you've got, that's a little better. Oh, it looks like a flower. Okay, this is just, I've only had like 4 cups of coffee. I think the problem is you're not meant to teach on Zoom. Oh my God. Whew. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, so imagine that center octagon. It's supposed to be an I can't talk, octagon. Imagine that is up above, and you've got a person in here. I'm gonna draw a person who is a guard. Guard? Wow. It's not a guard. Oh my God. Clear. No. Okay. Why can't I type guard? Whatever. Okay, I give up. All right. And then you've got in each of these sections below, oh, I know. Okay, that's a guard. I'm just going to say it because I can't write. And then you've got below in each of these spots prisoners. And remember, this is a thought experiment. This was not supposed to be real. I'm not going to draw all of them because that would be insane. But you've got all of these little prisoners who are all in their own cells, because this is based on Gramsci. I'm just going to draw 3 of them. They seem oddly happy right now. Okay, so here you've got prisoner 1. Here you've got prisoner 2. And here you've got prisoner 3. Okay, so now you've got this horrible drawing. I can actually explain it. Okay, so the thought experiment was, if we've got prisoners in cells, how do we get them to be the model prisoners without using any violence or coercion so that they cause no trouble, there's no problems at all? So the prisoners are told, you're in this prison space, there's a guard up above. The guard can look out in all directions, hence the Panopticon. But imagine this is a reflective surface, like one-way glass. So the prisoners can look up, they see their own reflection looking back at them, but they're told there's a guard up there. The guard can see in all directions. The guard is watching you. You don't know when the guard is watching you, but at all times the guard could be watching you. Then the experiment begins. So the prisoners are told, look, if you do the quote unquote right thing. If you don't break any rules, you're going to be fine. There will be no punishments. We don't need to tell you the rules because you'll figure them out. You'll only need to learn the rules when you break them, which is, again, an experiment. And then what starts to happen, prisoner one is hanging out in a cell one day. He can chat with his other buddies, and he's not doing anything. He's just hanging out, and all of a sudden, prisoner one gets zapped. Let me do it as a drawing. So I'm going to picture it as like a lightning bolt. So he gets one zap. And don't worry about the actual logistics of how you zap him. There's all sorts of different models and the way Bentham writes about this. So he gets zapped. It's very uncomfortable. And he's like, what the hell just happened? Like, what did I do to deserve that? He's been told, remember, that he will face punishment only if he breaks the rule. So he's like, I must have done something wrong, but I don't know what I did. That's weird. So after just one zap, he's going to have a moment of, what did I do wrong? He didn't do anything wrong. This is a random, arbitrary punishment, but he's told it has meaning. A little bit of time passes. He's not doing anything wrong, but again, he gets zapped, right? He's like, oh, that sucked. I really need to figure out what I did wrong because I do not want that again. He's going to ask over here to prisoner two. He's going to be like, hey there. Hey, prisoner two, have you been zapped? What's going on? Prisoner two is going to be like, no, dude, that sucks. Like you must have done something. Figure it out. Let me know when you know why you are being punished. At that point, for no reason in the thought experiment, prisoner two is going to be zapped. It's going to be very uncomfortable, right? He's going to be like, damn, that's it. Okay, I get it. And like you did something wrong and got zapped. I must have done the same thing. That's what got me punished. Neither of them did anything wrong. It was totally arbitrary. They shout over to prisoner three, hey, have you been zapped? He's going to say, no, I haven't, but tell me what you both are doing over there to warrant this kind of punishment. And this is where the power of this thought experiment kicks in. Remember that no one has actually done anything wrong. They're only told you get the punishment if you do something wrong. It only takes 3 random zaps of 2 people in a system, right? So you've got way more people involved, but it just takes 3 random zaps of 2 people for them to say, okay, we did something wrong. We have to figure this out so that we don't face more punishment. The trick to this is that they didn't do anything except the one thing that all prisoners do while they are in prison is want to get out. So they go back after these 3 zaps and talking with everybody else, they start to identify like, well, I was sitting this one time, but then the other time I was standing, like it wasn't a physical action I was doing. It must be something I was thinking, and the guard could see it in how I was having my facial expression held or whatever it is, right? So the one thing that they all have to agree not to do to avoid punishment, they all have to agree to choose to be in prison and accept it as their fate. And that's just after 3 completely arbitrary zaps. They can be completely controlled, and more importantly, they control themselves. So they tell themselves, I'm going to accept being in prison. I'm going to never think about leaving because that is how I avoid punishment. And the true trick to all of this is that you don't need a guard at all, right? You just need to be told that there's a guard up here looking down who will see if you do something wrong, but you don't actually need a guard there ever because it's all through self-control. Every time the prisoners look up, they see themselves looking back. They don't see anybody up there because there isn't anyone. It's just a random system of punishments. Within that, they can control the entire network. And furthermore, and this is where it gets super creepy, if you've got one person, and it could be any of these, but I'll just put him over here. If you've got one prisoner over here who says, you all are just dumb, right? That's nonsense. That's a really cute little stick figure. If this one prisoner is like, it's dumb, of course we should get out of prison. Like, this makes no sense. All of the rest of the prisoners will turn on him, sometimes violently, and they'll say, like, you're the reason that we are all being punished, right? So not only does it enforce self-conformity, it enforces a group conformity where there will be an us versus them interaction. And that's all from 3 random zaps. Very, very powerful to consider. Okay. Stop here. Any questions? Okay, so Foucault looks at the prisons and he's like, I get it. I see how that's a panopticon. I see how it's getting people to do what is maybe not in their best interest, but they think they've chosen it. Same with mental asylums. And then he looks at not just the buildings of American high schools, which are very, very unique, but he looks at the whole system of how do we get sometimes a few thousand people, like at Westview, to get up before the sun has risen, get on their bikes or walk or whatever, get to this building, funnel through these hallways, go and sit in classrooms based on a bell, stare at a whiteboard, and then with about 1:30 left before the end of class, you all inexplicably start packing up your stuff, sort of start getting that anxiety of like, oh, am I going to be able to get to my next class? Am I going to be able to see my friend down the hallway? All of that is kind of built into how you function in our actual building space. Furthermore, I forget the number now. If we were in the school, I'm trying to explain this. Like, imagine you're in one of the typical classrooms in Lower North. If you've never actually been in Westview, because I know a few of you haven't been in Westview, there's these long, long hallways. There's like 4 classrooms. Next time you go in the building, try this. If not, just if you've been in the building, imagine this. The hallways are a oatmeal colored tile. There's blue squares kind of every 4 classrooms. If you were to stand in the center of the blue square outside of any 4 classrooms, you can look into all 4 classrooms without being seen yourself. This is what Jill does, if you know Jill, right? So this is how security is supposed to operate. They can stand there. Administration can do this as well. They can look down the hallways. They can look into the rooms without being seen. And they do that, quote unquote, for our safety, which it is, right? It can be, but it's also a form of surveillance, just like the guard up in the tower, right? Also, now we have, it's something like 67 cameras going in the building. Those cameras, I'm probably not supposed to say this stuff out loud. Whatever, okay. Actually, I'll stop recording, I'll pause. We'll do a reading tomorrow about Foucault and the ideas of social control. Stop signs, right? Those are there. They're supposed to be, for your own good. So there are some things that are control that I am totally fine with, right? So we have some school rules that I'm totally fine with. Like, I think it's okay to say no weapons on campus. Cool, not a problem. I've also learned as a teacher that pretty much anything can be a weapon in a classroom, including a pencil. I've got some disturbing stories about that. I can tell you all at some point if you want. It's very upsetting. It's actually my first year teaching in Westview, and I was not sure I wanted to stay. I'm fine with school rules about no drug use. Awesome. Like that, I mean, coffee should be free, but other than that, like no drugs, fine. There are some rules that we have in the building that I think are totally useless, bordering on offensively stupid, right? The fact that you all can't have an open campus. That's just weird. It looks like an open campus. You can't tell that it's not an open campus. Why can't you go down the street and get yourself some lunch? Like I do not get that, especially if we're trying to teach you all to be thoughtful members of the community. Like, go ahead, like go get some food. Uh, but the rules are basically just like in the Panopticon. The rules are basically invisible until you break one of the rules, and then you're like, oh, not supposed to do that, because we've internalized them so very, very much. Okay. I know I'm rambling and this might seem very, very disconnected today, but it's all going to start making more sense. Any questions? Or if you're like, wait, this kind of reminds me of this thing I see at my work, or yeah, just any kind of daily life experiences with these things. Chicken chat. Okay, what I would like you all to do is this. And my screen looks different than yours. This is what I'm going to ask you to do for the rest of the period. Okay, so it's a couple of quick writes. So think about places where you know, or like it says, or you think you know, that other people can observe you. So I know a lot of you have jobs at various places, so definitely think about that. Try to think, yeah, COVID times, but also beyond COVID times. Just where can you be observed? And also think, like, where do you observe other people? Because it is reciprocal. And then be totally honest. To what extent does your behavior change? And it might be different in different contexts, right? So my behavior is very different if I'm supposed to be acting a certain way. Like if I'm at school, I act one way. If I'm at the pool, where I'm, as you know, a quite violent and aggressive person, I act differently, right? So my behavior does change to some extent. I think for the most part, I kind of just do what I do. But to be totally honest, I will say, like, if an administrator walks into my room, I used to change my behavior a lot. Now I don't care anymore. I'll swear as much as ever, but you all are used to me, right? So that's your homework. It should be pretty fun. I'm not looking for lengthy responses. I just want you to kind of think about, where is it that you are observed? Some of you are on Chromebooks, I know. If you're on a school computer, there was a time when the school computers could, it sounds really creepy, they could see you through the cameras, right? I think that they've changed that. They've also changed it because there was a short time where if I'm in a classroom, there was some function where I could, from my school computer, I could see what you all were looking at on your school computer screens, and I could shut down pages. I never figured out how to do that because I'm not spending any of my life trying to figure that stuff out. I know, like I've told you all, and it's not happening right now, but I know that since I'm on school computer, the district can see what I'm doing. They can do screenshots and that kind of thing. So someone just asked me, as far as I know, the newer Chromebooks do not have cameras to film you. The older ones absolutely did, but I think the new ones do not. I hope. We should test it. No, that's bad. That was a bad suggestion. Don't listen to me. But also think about, at work, think about, yeah, so a lot of people put like a, well, if I could put just like a piece of sticker or something over the cameras, because mean, I know that they are filming me. And plus now with Zoom, you just, it's all beyond our controls. Even little things like, on cell phones have their own versions of recording and observing us. That sounds really paranoid, but like you all know what's going on. I think you have a very good sense of this. Cool. Okay. I'm going to make myself shut up. Take the rest of the time to do that little project. Should be fun. Oh, can teachers hear us on Zoom? Huh. Okay, so someone asked if teachers can hear you on Zoom even when you are muted. I cannot. I'm also a total idiot with computers, especially with Zoom. So I can't say for sure, but I don't think that we can. It's a good question. I'm going to email Christina Schultz. She's our tech person, and ask her, because that would be worth knowing. Not so I can spy on you, just so I can have the answer. Cool. All right. Otherwise, have a good rest of the day. Tomorrow we'll keep building on this, and it'll make a lot more sense. Oh yeah, the your sophomore years when they added all those extra cameras. Yep. Yeah, I remember that. And a lot of them are pointed in at the teacher clusters too. I mean, I do graffiti in the cluster a fair bit, but that's all. I call it art. It's totally fine. It's fine. Okay, cool. Thank you all for being so patient with me, and I will see you all tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.